Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. The Sunday newspaper has 5 to 6 important articles for us, but there's also a lot of overlap which we'll talk about. Good morning to all of you. Now, remember that the 22,999 plus 12 months extension offer is going to end very soon. So do use this opportunity to join our course. Use the code IAS English. And these are the topics which we are going to cover. Now, as I predicted yesterday, there are basically three articles under FAQ. One is the significance of Saudi and Pakistan pact, then isobutanol blending, and the concept of fentanyl. These are three articles which are out of the FAQ. Then we have something coming out of the US. Again, Trump trying to shake the tree. We'll talk about that. And in the end, we have a breakthrough in the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project in that regard. So the idea is very simple. This is not a surprise to us because this is how FAQ works. Throughout the week, whatever is going to dominate, they will give an article explaining everything. We have understood the why and the how. We just now have to understand the significance. So this is something which I predicted yesterday, that there will be an article. We'll not spend too much time here because yesterday we had a discussion close to 40-45 minutes around this. Rather, this time we will move on further. I'll give you the basic gist of what we've discussed over the past 2 days, and then we'll move on to the fentanyl and the isobutanol article in that regard. Good morning. Sure, Tamanna, what you can do is that when the session is ending, you just type all your doubts in the chat section. I'll be happy to take them. No issues whatsoever. Now, this article is basically a gist of what has been happening for the past, you can say, two days, 3 days. Articles have been about this only. This talks about significance. So we discussed why. Now the significance aspect is left. But most of the points here are in a way repetitions. Most of them are repetitive points which we've discussed previously also. In that regard, points we discussed previously also. So let's try to bring everything together on one slide of what we've done for the past 2 days, and then we'll talk about what the article gives you as an understanding. So we know that Saudi Arabia recently went into a strategic defense pact with Pakistan called the SMDA. And the question was that why is Pakistan being seen by Saudi Arabia as a security provider in the Persian Gulf sector, in the West Asian sector in that regard? And there are 2 to 3 things which we have to keep in mind. First is how the US has shown, you can say, lackluster, very lukewarm response to what has happened in Qatar. The Qatar bombing recently has changed the perception. A US dominated security environment is not something which is giving a lot of people comfort, and therefore there's a move away from this idea that the US is the guarantor of the security landscape here. Second is the idea that the Israelis have been very, very, very aggressive, and the bombing by the Israelis in Qatar itself, a GCC member, means that nobody is safe, and the Israeli aggression is now backfiring for India at least. Thereafter, we also talked about the angle with regards to nuclear tech and the optics of this. That basically this SMDA is more symbolic than actually on paper, and it is the US-Israeli pact and the response of US over the strikes which are happening across the Arab world itself, and also what is happening in the Gaza Strip. And again, the Israeli angle comes through. This has pushed the Saudi Arabians towards the idea that we can use Pakistan in Sunni, you can say, cooperation. And the angle with regards to Iran also comes through as a nuclear power, wherein the nuclear tech angle comes through. Iran also is one angle here. Sunni cooperation and Islamic cooperation is something which has been talked about. I think we have previously established that this is a complex web of factors and optics and geopolitics, something which we don't really need now clarification, because we've been talking about this for the past, you can say, 2 days in a lot of detail. I hope this much is sorted for you, because for the past 2 days, this is the only conversation which has dominated for us. If you can give me that assertion, yes, sir, we are sorted with regards to this. We understand why this pact is significant. We will just re-establish those points again, which the significance article is talking about. And then we'll talk about what is the Indian angle here. Why is Saudi Arabia doing what it is doing? It is sorted. Perfect. Now, the article reiterates the points which we have previously talked about also, which is, for example, the fact that the Saudis are not satisfied by the existing security ties and security order. This is where they are questioning the US-based security order, and the tipping point, it is believed, has been the Qatari bombing by Israel, because of the fact that Qatar has the biggest air base, the largest US military base in West Asia, the Al Ubaid Air Base is in Qatar. Still, the Americans did not respond in any way or form. You can call it the Trump effect. So there's a Trump effect that nobody really wants to, in a way, trust Trump as of right now to provide a security environment which is based on a US dominated understanding. The second point which is being made here is the US itself is changing its focus from West Asia towards East Asia, wherein the angle with regards to the South China Sea and the China angle comes through. Meaning the US has for a very long time dominated the politics, the geopolitics and the internal mechanisms of this sector. But somehow the US itself is showing a shift away from West Asia towards East Asia. And therefore, this is also indicative of the US shift in that regard. So again, nothing new for us. We've been talking about this for now the past 2 days. But the idea is we have a shift from the what we call as the Saudi angle, and the other one is from the American angle. Further, one important factor which has pushed the Saudis in this is the Houthis, who are dominating Yemen as of right now. The Houthi forces were hit by the US, by Israel, by the Saudis. However, they still control the capital Sana'a, and half of Yemen is still controlled by this insurgent group, or the Saudis will call it a terrorist group in that regard. But when the Houthis hit Saudi Arabian oil facilities and also shipping corridors in the Red Sea, again, no US response, and the threat from the Houthis is something which is being considered to be a very important understanding, wherein they know that the threat lies in the neighbor itself, and therefore there's a need. Pakistan has a lot of military experience. Pakistan has a lot of, you can say, military ground. I rather say that there is a certain joke that the most heaviest thing which the Saudi Arabian army has picked up is their paycheck. Meaning, on the battle experience, Saudi army does not have. Pakistani army has, because of its conflict with, or the way the geopolitics of South Asia is. Therefore, Saudi Arabia could actually use the Pakistani army ground or the tactical military experience to counter the Houthis. So therefore, the idea is that everybody is recalibrating their understanding. Again, something which we've talked about previously. Now, there are risks for both these countries in the SMDA. There are risks for Pakistan. It is getting sucked into the politics of West Asia, which is its Iran and Houthi and Yemen, that whole complex Pakistan has stayed away from. At the same point of time, Saudi Arabia can easily become part of the India-Pakistan tensions, and therefore Saudis have been a very reliable partner, have been a good partner for India in the West Asian sector. We are actually taking a lot of oil from them, lot of investment also coming from them. Now this could sour the relationship. Now the question remains is, it is not that the Saudis did not know about this problem, or it is not that the Pakistanis don't know about it. It is just that there is a new trend. The trend being, just 1 second, I have to change the color for this. So the trend being that Pakistan somehow is being seen as a security provider, and the Saudis are going to give them funds, and this is what is called as an independent policy which they are following. Again, I hope that if you've gone through day before yesterday's or yesterday's the CNA, nothing is new for you. This perceptual change of Pakistan is a little bit problematic for India generally, and we can talk about what it means for India. So when it comes to the Indian angle, this is also messaging to India by the Saudis, because India in its West Asian policy has always had a pro-Israeli tilt. Now the Saudis are saying that if you can have a pro-Israeli tilt and actually engage with us, we can have a pro-Pakistan tilt and engage with you. Because Israel and Saudi Arabia don't go together, but we still have a pro-Israeli tilt. Now they're saying that we can have a pro-Pakistan tilt also, but we can still have a good relationship with you. Further, the credibility and the idea that Pakistan is now being seen as a security provider obviously will create a lot of questions for India's influence in this sector. And the Islamic and the Sunni cooperation as it is going to undercut India's influence in that regard. And US is not the guarantor of anything in this sector now. And therefore, there is a recalibration and realignment which is happening, and India needs to be wary how it actually understands it. So, I hope that there are no further articles on this in the Hindu newspaper from tomorrow onwards. For the past 3 days, we've been doing this only, and I've been consolidating whatever we're getting as news together. But again, to reiterate this point, Saudi-Pakistani SMDA has optics and rhetoric behind it, based on the idea that it's a security complex recalibration. US cannot be trusted. Israel is extremely aggressive. India has pro-Israeli, you can say, tilt. Pakistan was seen as a rogue state, as a problematic state. Its perception within the Islamic world and across the world is changing to a security provider. Pakistan giving nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia is not good for the world generally, but is MBS, which is Mohammed bin Salman, as it is, could buy as many, you can say, nuclear plants and a bomb if needed. Also, he joked about it with Lindsey Graham also, that if I need a bomb, I'll buy it from Pakistan. The idea is very simple. US finickiness and US lukewarm response, Israeli attack on Qatar. If Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th was a threshold point, you can say break-even point or a tipping point for the Israelis, the Qatar attack by Israel is a tipping point from Saudi Arabia, where the US is not seen as a guarantor. The overall understanding is the US hegemonic understanding as a security provider, as a state, as a unipolar power, as a hegemonic power is going on. I hope this much is good enough to answer a question like this. In West Asia, regional powers are recalibrating. Security arrangements once taken for granted are being reconfigured. Come in. Will you be capable of writing an answer for this? After the 3 days discussion we had, there's no point putting more time into this. We had a very long discussion yesterday about this only. Iran is fighting with Israel. Is there any chance Iran will make alliance with Saudi? No, that can never happen. Shia-Sunni states will never cooperate together. That is a historical conflict altogether. Iran and Saudis are historically, you can say, poised to be enemies in that regard, and that is where that configuration will not happen for sure. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia is more natural because of Sunni. Iran and Saudis are that is the whole problem within this complex, and Israel. These three are the major problems in that. Are we sorted with regards to this? Are you capable of writing an answer for this? Because I need your assertion here. Something we were discussing for the past 3 days. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. Right. Okay. So use the PPTs which are in my Telegram channel. Everything will together make sense. Sir, how many years needs to clear this? Please confirm. In what context are you saying? What has to be cleared in how many years? Udayana, can you just write that down? Okay. Now, the second article onwards, we have something interesting to discuss about. It's called isobutanol blending with diesel. Now, we know that ethanol blending has been happening or is now a norm within the petrol cars, the E20 petrol, as you would know. E10 was already there, and now we have shifted to E20. There has been a lot of controversy over E20 also because of the involvement of one of the minister's son in ethanol plants in that regard, but that's a separate issue altogether. But now 20% of your petrol is ethanol and 80% is petroleum or pure petrol in that sense. Now this is where we know that there are a lot of concerns which are being talked about efficiency, about mileage going down, about fuel tanks having residue and moisture in that regard. This will impact the, you can say, engines over a long period of time. So there's a lot which is being talked about E20. And ethanol blending is a good way of substituting the imports, which meaning, for example, if we are bringing in 100 barrels of oil, we can use them further because of 20% use of ethanol. So for import substitution, ethanol was considered to be a game changer in that regard. But diesel is one fuel which is still not blended with anything, and ethanol blending with diesel was tried. When ethanol blending with diesel was tried, it did not work. That is where one more chemical which is produced through the same process of ethanol, which is called isobutanol, its blending with diesel is now being tested. So we now have to understand what is isobutanol, how is it produced, and what are the pros and cons of doing this. So it is important because it would further reduce our oil import, you can say, bill. But the idea again is there are advantages, disadvantages to the whole story. So this is the basic point here, right? Can we say that Russia, Ukraine, Israel war is negative effect on Indian foreign policy? It's not Russia, Ukraine, but India's alignment with Russia and India's alignment with Israel is, and the US now coming out of the picture, and the US becoming very, you can say, aggressive against Russia. That is backfiring for us. It's not that simple, Mary. It is not that simple. It's not just that these two wars impacted India. It's an alignment policy, how we are balancing all of them, that is leading to this issue. It is part and parcel of foreign policy. There are no permanent enemies and allies in world history or in world politics. Keeps on changing. Don't have to worry about them. Now, first thing is, what is this chemical isobutanol? How is this produced? Now, when we talk about isobutanol, there are two ways in which you can produce it. The same way you can produce ethanol. First is through the propyl petroleum method, which is based out of crude oil. Now, this is fossil fuel dependent, very well known process, but isobutanol from renewable, non-renewable sources would undercut the whole concept itself. Therefore, what is being talked about is the way we get ethanol, which is biological, bio-isobutanol, which is sugar, starch, molasses, sugar cane, and the digestion by microbes in turn leads to ethanol. It can also produce isobutanol. Same process can produce isobutanol in certain amounts, renewable but costlier in that regard. So it is bio-isobutanol which is being talked about as the most important you can say, process which can allow India to then blend it with diesel, in turn producing a good response. But the question is, why is that ethanol is not working, but isobutanol is working? And what are the factors? Meaning they can ask you, why is there a comparative advantage to isobutanol over ethanol in diesel? That is where ethanol blending with diesel is not working, because ethanol is actually lower flash point, very quick to catch fire, and diesel needs to be first compressed to catch fire. That is where if you have lower flash point chemical with diesel, it in turn leads to incomplete combustion. That is where isobutanol is considered to be better, because with certain additives and with higher flash point is at the point at which it becomes into vapor and then combusts. That is where it is being believed that it is safer and more technically suited with diesel. Because diesel itself, if you actually take diesel and just take a match and put it in diesel, it will not catch fire. Diesel is a mixture of chemicals. And that is where if I take a match, put it into diesel, it will not catch fire. Take petrol and take a match and put it into petrol will combust very quickly. Lower flash point. That is where you need it is the engine which compresses diesel into a certain way. That is why diesel engines don't survive over a long period of time, have bigger knock rate also, make you can say more noise also, because the combustion happens under pressure. Isobutanol has that higher flash point, where both are matching with diesel's flash point, in turn leading to better. So the blending is better with isobutanol, and the higher flash point is helping. Further, what is believed is we have surplus production of ethanol. With ethanol blending becoming so important, generally, most of the farmers have moved away from sugar mill based sugar cane production to sugar cane for ethanol production. So it is just that where from the same process you get ethanol, you can get isobutanol also, and therefore we have an abundant supply in that regard. Abundant supply. So what we need to actually do is just retrofit a sugar refinery. A sugar refinery with a fermentation tank and biomass retrofitting with distillation tank can easily produce certain amounts of ethanol and certain amounts of isobutanol. So it's very easy. Not something where we have to have a different infrastructure. It's just retrofitting certain infrastructures in that regard. Now, before we move on to the pros and cons, there will always be certain cons of blending petrol and diesel with certain forms of ethanol or what is called as butanol. Why? Because that will leave a residue. You need new processes. You need a separate engine. You need a separate catalytic converter. The cost of blending has to be borne by you and me. That is a separate issue altogether. But there are also other questions over using isobutanol, and there are ways in which we can figure it out. And at the end, one of the most important question is, can this reduce the cost of diesel also? Because the cost of petrol did not go down. The cost of petrol did not go down. Even with 20% ethanol, it is the same price. So it should not be that diesel price remains the same or increases because of the additives in that regard. So that is where we have to discuss the pros and cons also of using something like isobutanol. Ethanol is not working instead of butanol because of volatility and affinity. Yes, that is true. Why, despite getting cheap crude oil from Russia, now E20 blending prices are still the same? Monu, that is because petrol does not come under GST. And therefore, each state has its own value addition tax, VAT. And also there's an excise duty which the government of India takes, which is central government. Though the central government excise duty is the same across India, states actually take a different you can say different percentage VAT. That is why in, for example, Noida, you will get petrol cheaper than Delhi. In Bangalore, you get it more expensive. For example, in Tamil Nadu, you'll get it cheaper than in Bangalore. And the same way, across India, you have a lot of variation. Lot of variation in petrol prices. This is where the policy has been questioned also, Monu, that the idea was that with E20 mixing, the prices should have gone down. It is also the profiteering of the oil corporations. It's a nexus in that regard. So a lot have these are the controversies which have actually in a way led to E20 being criticized quite a lot. Because with not even 1 rupee decrease in the price of petrol and with very cheap crude oil, nothing has been transferred It is about transferring the advantage to the you can say consumer. But what the oil corporation says, we are selling 20% less petrol, so you cannot reduce the price of petrol. Therefore, E20 blending is going to be costlier for us, and therefore it becomes sum zero. It becomes sum zero. So it's purely a state by state and oil corporation understanding. Because of the varied, there has been a lot of talk about putting alcohol and petrol into GST, but because it is against state interest, it has not gone through. If we get GST regime in petrol, petrol prices will become stable across and same across India. That is still not happening. So that is a separate issue altogether. Right? Can I move ahead to the pros and cons of using isobutanol? Separation of gasoline. Mileage is obviously going to reduce because it's a bio-based. Bioethanol is not that efficient in that regard. Though the international oil but domestic prices are high because of the previous government's loan have subsidy. All of that is there. See, it's about pushing the advantage to the consumer. That has not. Okay. Now, what are the concerns? Which are the cons? And what are the ways in which we can make it work? I hope that these tables and these flowcharts are helping, and generally you have been able to make better notes in the past 3 days. So first is the mixing ability. There is a lot of question that can isobutanol actually be blended properly with diesel? There's a question over this. Now, will this work at a commercial scale is the question. There is a question that we can add biodiesel to it, and then you can get better mixing. So diesel plus biodiesel plus isobutanol. But then the question is, what is going to happen to the mileage and the efficiency of the fuel? That is also a question. Yes, that is true, Avantika. Then the combustion quality. This is the question, which is isobutanol has significantly lower combustion ability than diesel. So it may be that the ignition and the mileage and the efficiency of the cars fall. That is where maybe we would have to add certain additives, but that would have a cost. Then it is about a risk of diesel knock. Diesel knock means a diesel engine already has a lot of vibrations. And if proper combustion does not happen, see, all pistons have to move in synchronization. But if in one piston chamber there is combustion and the other one there is no combustion, they go out of sync. When they go out of sync, a diesel engine becomes very, very wobbly. That is called engine knock. Engine knock mostly happens when the fuel is not good and mixture of the fuel is such that the pistons are not in sync with one another. When they are not in sync with one another, the crankshaft also, then rotation falls, and therefore the ability of the car to give you torque falls further. So therefore what happens is, there is a question that maybe we have to add more and more additives, or blending should be fixed at not more than 10%. Meaning after 10%, isobutanol will give knock in a diesel engine for sure. Further, the question with regards to flashpoint is there. Because both of them are on different flashpoints, there is a need to make sure that testing happens properly. It's not that isobutanol catches further and then catches fire first and then diesel catches fire. That is going to destroy the engine from within itself. Further, can it actually reduce emissions? Again, has to be tested. Can allow us to do import substitution? Sure. But again, blending can harm engines, the long-term health of a car, because you and me invest in a car. If a car could have worked for 20 years, it will now only work for 10 years because the engine is going to destroy itself over the isobutanol diesel mixture. So in the end, we are believing that there's a pilot study which is happening. It will take close to 1.5 years. So let's see. If India does introduce isobutanol in diesel, India is going to become the first country to do so. So again, lot of questions here. Let's do one thing. Let's bring all of it into a certain site. Can I consolidate here? Isobutanol. Yes, this is the idea. Isobutanol blending with diesel and ethanol cannot be blended. There are certain reasons for that. Reason comes to, you can say, combustion, or we'll say this mixture doesn't work. Now, there are pros and cons. Isobutanol, pros is import substitution. First country to do so. Further, can allow for lower prices, But there are cons to it also, which is mixing, knock, combustion, and overall health of car, and cannot be done more than 10%. Make sense? Will the reduction in efficiency cancel out the emissions? That is, Antara, an argument which has been given quite a lot, that because if my car was giving me 11 to 12 kilometers per liter, and now it is giving me 8, even if I have E20 petrol, I am now putting more petrol over the, so it is, see, these are all questionable understandings. And E20 has been criticized quite a lot now. So isobutanol, I don't think it will be immediate adoption, but because diesel is used in mostly in trucks, and if our free traffic, the efficiency goes down, it will be net zero. It will come to zero because they will then have to put more diesel, and therefore there was no point. The emissions are going to become more or less the same. But it's about finding alternatives. It is an alternative which should be explored in that regard. Right? Okay. So sorted, everyone? Now, discuss the potentiality and the concerns about blending isobutanol with diesel. This is a question which you can expect in the examination, GS paper 3. A legitimate question, because now there's a new product, a new word in vogue, which is isobutanol. You should know what it means. Can I move to the next topic? Are we sorted with regards to this? We'll move to fentanyl after this, US and fentanyl. Yes, sir? Come on, I have to be more proactive. Yes, sir, we are sorted. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, India has been yesterday also blacklisted, or is going to be blacklisted very soon by the EU. But we were added to another blacklist, which is the US blacklist on fentanyl. And this is related to the opioid crisis, which is there in America. Opioids are painkillers. People are using painkillers which have potency 4 to 5 times higher than heroin and cocaine to do drug abuse. And that is leading to a lot of, because these are much more potent narcotics, they lead to drug overdose, and the deaths in America have skyrocketed, and there's a pure opioid crisis across America as of right now, where people are overusing and misusing and basically drugging themselves with medicines which are meant to be painkillers in that regard. Now, this is where fentanyl is considered to be the biggest problem, bigger than cocaine, heroin in America as of right. Fentanyl, what is called as abuse, is the biggest crisis within opioid abuse itself. Now, the question for us is 3 things. What does this blacklisting mean? What is fentanyl? And why is it so difficult to manage this crisis for the US? So, when we talk about this major list in which India has been added, it is a set of countries from where the narcotics or illicit drugs come. So, fentanyl is considered to be the most dangerous. Therefore, whichever country is supplying fentanyl products or fentanyl, you can say precursors, which is the chemicals needed for fentanyl, that is where India, Pakistan, China, Afghanistan, all four have been listed as the, you can say, a source of fentanyl illicit drug production, or at least sending it. So this major list does only tells you the source. It tells you where it is coming from. It does not talk about in any way or form how much counter narcotics measures have been taken. It is just that it is a list which tells you, okay, fentanyl is coming from these countries in these quantities and these are the sources. So in itself, this list does not really mean anything, but just that India is there means that a lot of our companies which supply the precursors, the chemicals needed to be put into fentanyl, now this could lead to further sanctions or some form of, you can say, US based measures on us in that regard. So that is where this major list is about. Now the question is, what is fentanyl? Why is it so dangerous? What is its abuse? Now, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid which was developed in the 1960s. It is a painkiller. Basically, it's a painkiller. For extreme pain, it is given. Fentanyl was a prescription drug, but now is produced and distributed across America without a prescription also. Potency is 50x more than heroin, and if you take 2 mg of fentanyl, it could be fatal and you could do overdose. So if heroin gives you 1% of, or you can say 1 unit of high, or you can say this drug high, 50% more or 50x more is the potency of fentanyl. So you can imagine how potent that drug is. Now, the way it harms us is, if you take more than 1 gram, it basically shuts down the respiratory system. Because of the receptors which are there, the U-opioid receptor which is there in fentanyl, it basically gives a certain, you can say, message to the brain to shut down or compress the respiratory system. And overdose is mostly because of respiratory failure. Mostly the lungs, they are depressed themselves. Basically the respiratory system shuts down itself. Now, there is a way to, in a way, revive that person if he's overdosing. That is called the naloxone. Naloxone is the medicine which you have to give to that person. But because it has to be administered timely and very quickly, most of the people who do overdose do not get naloxone on time. Now, what is the quantum of people? What is the real load of fentanyl poisoning or fentanyl overdose? In August 2023 to 2024 period, more than 57,000 opioid overdose deaths happened, mostly because of fentanyl overdose. And more than that, the DEA, which is there, you can say anti-narcotics division, that actually has seized a lot of heavy quantities of fentanyl from multiple drug peddlers and drug dealers in that regard. Fentanyl is now the main driver of the opioid crisis. So you can understand it's a very concentrated painkiller opioid. If you don't take it under the prescription or the guidance of a physician, it can lead to addiction, and there further overdose is very easy because you can take more than what you think you can actually take. And that is why fentanyl overdose has become a problem in America as of right now. Now, the issue in its regulation is that the precursors, the chemicals needed to produce fentanyl, which is NPP, ANPP, they are actually legitimate chemicals which are needed in simple glassware, and it is very known industrial chemical. Therefore, it is very easy to ship. It is very easy to bring it into America. So, for example, the problem is that it is not the fentanyl which is coming into America. It is the fentanyl original chemicals. By mixing these two chemicals, you get fentanyl, and the refinement of NPP leads to fentanyl production. NPP, ANPP is very, very known chemical and is needed in industrial systems. It is just that people are misusing it for production of fentanyl. Therefore, this is leading to a problem, the dual use of the precursors, both industrial and pharmaceutical. And because if America bans the precursors, which is the NPP, ANPP, it will in turn lead to the problem of industrial production being hit. So therefore, because industrial production is going to be hit, supply chain will be hit, they can't stop NPP, ANPP from coming. And therefore, the public health crisis is based on the misuse of a certain product which is needed in the industrial process. Now, why is India under the scanner? Because India and China both actually produce the NPP and ANPP, the precursor chemicals, and import it or export it to America. Now, it is the Mexican drug cartels, it is the local producer who are then processing it to produce fentanyl. Indian company, two Indian companies were actually under the scanner in January of 2025 for supplying the precursors to the Mexicans. That has in turn led to the deportation of the two chemicals, the executives which are there. But the question is very simple, that this is not just a crisis in America. It is a crisis which can take form across India also, across any country, because it is a readily available chemical. It is basically like how we have people who are addicted to petroleum sniffing, are addicted to glue sniffing, are using certain form of thinners to get a high, and that is where a thing which is needed in stationery, it is needed in cars, they are misusing it. It is a misuse of a readily available chemical which is the real problem here. I have given you all of this data because you should know what is fentanyl and you should understand what is the main issue here. The main issue here is not that fentanyl is being exported across the Mexican border. It is the problem that the chemical needed to produce fentanyl is very readily available across industrial products. So if you're having an industry, it is very easy to have an illicit drug cartel also work there because the same chemicals are to be used. Right? So I hope that you understand what is the challenge here, what is fentanyl, and what is the crisis or the volume of the crisis in America. Sorted, everyone? 3 FAQs we had to do: Saudi, Pakistan, isobutanol blending. So what we've understood is Pakistan and Saudi Arabia relationship and why it is about security providing and a shift. Then we talk about isobutanol being blended with diesel, and we've talked about another chemical called fentanyl, which is being actually pushed through in America. The opioid crisis is something important. Right? Now, there are 3 articles which are related to the same topic and we have to read them together. First is Trump hiking the H-1B visa fees to 100 you can say $1 lakh or $100,000. And then there are 2 other articles, one talking about what is going to be the impact on the giants in America who employ Indians, and what is the earning capacity of an Indian. Now, before I talk about the impact of this, there's a lot of clarification which has come through in the past 2 hours. Whilst making this PPT itself, I was listening to the news as I was preparing this PPT, and there have been a lot of clarifications which have come through. Those clarifications are not part of this article, obviously, because Hindu newspaper would have started to print this early in the night itself. So I will tell you what is the clarification, right? But just to give you an understanding what H1B is, I have it on the PPT also. I'll break it down for you in the simplest way possible, right? Now, I hope everybody is listening. I am Apple. I have a requirement for an AI engineer, and that AI engineer, I can get a cheaper engineer from America than actually training somebody in America, because that BTech in AI is more common in India, and we have better professionals, more competent professionals in India. Now, what H1B allows for, do understand one thing, as an individual, you cannot apply for H1B. H1B is through the employer. So, for example, I am a AI engineer. Apple wants an AI engineer. I apply for that job. When I apply for the job, I get that job. But the problem is I am sitting in India. I have to go to America. And if I have to work in America, I need a working visa. Student visa, I can only study there. I need a working visa. So what Apple is going to do, now this is the process which is followed. What Apple is going to do is, it is going to nominate my name, give a fees of $2,000 to $5,000 to the US immigration, and nominate my name for an H1B visa. Now, as of right now, the quota which is there is for 65,000 H1B visas are released every year for bachelor's degree, 20,000 for master's degree, meaning total 85,000. Now, the idea is that it is a lottery system, meaning if the company is nominating 10 people, their name is taken out from the lottery. If you meet the lottery requirements, if you rather your name comes out, then you are asked to give all the documentations proving that there is a certain clause in H1B that the employer can only employ a foreigner if it is for specific jobs. You can't be taken for a janitor, you can't be taken for a carpenter. It is for specialized specific jobs. Then I will give all the documentation. See, I am an Indian. I have the specialized understanding. I have a BA degree. I have a BTech degree also. And Amazon or rather Apple will say that yes, we have given him a job offer and he specializes in this and this is our requirement. Then if I meet it, if 100 people are applying after lottery, meaning if 1,000 people apply, 100 people's name come out, only 25% are actually meeting H1B understanding. But if I have all the documentation, then the US government is going to give me, immigration is going to give me an H1B visa for 3 years, which can be further extended to 6 years if I am wanting to apply for a green card. The idea is I can go there, work for 3 years, then I can apply for a green card. A green card would be in a way getting a more permanent form of H1B, and therefore I can extend it to 6 years. But there is one clause. There's one clause. If Apple has taken me as the employee and Google gave me a better offer, and if I have come to America on H1B visa of Apple and I shift my job to Google, I would have to then cancel my H1B visa with Apple and my application will go on further. Again, that will not go through a lottery process, but H1B visas have to be renewed when you shift jobs. So it is believed that the total number is those 65,000. The total number of applications which came was 207,000 applications for H1B. And we as Indians dominate H1B visa applications and approvals, with 71% of all H1B visas going to us, which is Indians dominate the H1B visa landscape. Now, what Trump sees here is a problem. And that problem is that because the application cost is only $2,000 to $5,000, the employer is also ready to pay it. And if Google has to poach me out of Apple, it again will say has to pay $2,000 to $5,000. The cost of renewal is also very low. The cost of application is also very, very low. Trump has now basically struck at the middle of this process by saying the initial order said, now pay attention, the initial order said that anybody who will now hold an H1B visa, the application fees will be $100,000 a year. A year, meaning that whenever I'm going to apply, first year I would have to pay $100,000. So therefore I get it for 3 years. So it would be $300,000 is the amount which Apple would have to pay me to get that visa. Or rather would have to pay to the US immigration to get that visa. Basically, it's one-time application fees. Now the point is, if I convert that $100,000 into rupees, it is 90 lakh rupees to 1 crore. Now we have clarification on 2 points. First, anybody who already has an H1B visa and who is going to renew an H1B visa, he or she does not come under this scheme. This clarification is not given by the Hindu newspaper. This has come today in last 1 hour. That whoever is in India or in America, previously it was that if you're outside India, outside America, 1 day was given to come back. If you don't come back, then there will be $100,000 restricted approval needed. And therefore, the idea was, if you look at the Insta Reels right now, you will see Emirates flights, Indian airline flights, full chaos because people are trying to rush back to America. First clarification which has come from the White House is $100,000 rule does not apply to people who already hold an H1B visa for the past 3 years or are going to renew. What this now applies on is from February next year, when any new application is going to come for anybody from India, then this $100,000 rule is going to come. This means this is not going to impact in the short run. But if any of you or any of your friends had a certain aspiration to go to America and work for Apple and Google, nobody is going to get a visa now. Why? I'll tell you why. The reason is because of this number. The annual salary bracket in which Indians were actually employed was less than 100,000. 47% of Indians were actually given employment in the bracket of $75,000 to $100,000 package. Now imagine why will Amazon, Google, Microsoft give $100,000 for an employee whose overall salary is $100,000. I hope you get this point. Only 7%, 11% and 23% are above this bracket. Meaning majority of the employees were going for a package close to 90 lakh rupees. Now their application fees is 90 lakh rupees and their annual salary is 90 lakh rupees. It is not that we are having a different type of engineering itself. It is just that it was easier to take an Indian than to actually teach an American the same concept. So now what Trump has done is he has incentivized Americans to do the same types of degrees, and Amazon and Google would be more incentivized to take them. This is the real problem here, that in the long run, this is for sure going to impact Indian immigration out of India to America, because new applications will have $100,000 one-time application fees. This is the second thing also which has come as clarification. It is a one-time, only first year application fee, not 300,000 has to be paid, only 100,000. 1 crore rupees lagenge. That is the whole point. So therefore, the Hindu argues is, as it is, majority of the employment will go down because they were under that much. Now, just to reiterate all of what I've said, I'm going to just tell you through the process of the PPT also. H1B visa is a non-immigration work visa that allows US employers to temporarily hire foreign workforce in specialty occupations in specialized knowledge with at least a bachelor's degree. Now, what are the rules? A US company can hire skilled workforce for which Americans are not available. It is in different fields: IT, engineering, finance, medicine. 3 eligibility criteria were there: having at least a bachelor's degree. India, everybody has a bachelor's degree, more or less. Every UPSC aspirant has a bachelor's degree. A valid offer from a US employer. A job must qualify for the specialty occupation. This is the word. Specialty occupation. For that. Now, they must also adhere to the wage rules in America. That's it. Now, validity initially 3 years, can be extended to 6 years if holding a green card. Allows the visa holder to apply for a US green card, and also family members, spouse and children under 21 can accompany under H4. And therefore H4 spouses can work if green card process is underway. So this is the whole nexus which is there, which is Indians going to America. Then the wife also reaches there, she also works, they also work. That is the whole complex which is there. H4 plus H1B together works very well. Now, this is going to impact. This has now been clarified that who are currently outside the US, they need not need to rush back. This is a clarification which has come through. But what Hindu newspaper gives is 2 very interesting data. First data is, firstly, they have Hindu newspaper has misquoted the quota. Each year it is not 6,50,000, it is 65,000. Out of which 20,000 for reserved for advanced degrees. If you look at the data, Amazon, TCS, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Google, Cognizant, JP Morgan, Walmart and Deloitte, along with Infosys, HCL and LIT Mindtree. This is the number of Amazon with the highest number of H1B approvals. And 71% of all H1B visas go to Indians. But as I said, if you look at the pay scale at which they are going, now henceforth from the next 2 to 3 years, this is going to create a lot of chaos and is going to impact H1B, H4 and Indian immigration into America. So this is a concept which again we will have some form of article tomorrow also. But I wanted you to understand how H1B works and what is the concept itself. I hope that is sorted. What is H1B? How does it work? How it is going to impact in the long run? How it is already quite complicated as a process, right? See, what logic Trump has given is this. American workers are being replaced with lower paid foreign labor, creating economic and national security threat. The share of IT workers with H1B visa rose from 32% to 65%. He has his own logic to this. That is where that is Trump for you. Indian back tag to India, and we can say that American GDP is going down. That is not how it works. We have a lot of diasporic population that is good for soft power. With a lot of remittance coming to India. It was good for India only. It is going to create friction in labor market. Yes, true. That is true. Okay. American workers are anyway going to get fried with the tariff. That is, see, Franklin, Trump, see, to be very honest, if you had gone through the election cycle, if you've gone through the rhetoric behind the election cycle, Indian diasporic population supported Trump quite a lot. Over Kamala Harris, he was supported quite a lot. Because Trump presidency 1.0 was very good for India. But 2.0, it is going down the drain like anything. It's like a crashing plane as of right now. From the tariffs to now this only complicates and makes the life of a lot of people very, very uncertain. So it is not very easy. There would be thousands of families today which would be now fearful of their existence in America, and a lot of families and parents today who would be very, very scared for their children in America. So it is problematic. So you want me to bring this to one slide? See, okay, let's do that. So H1B is issued by US, applied by employer, Now, new applications from $2,200 to $5,000 to now it will become $100,000. H1B is for 3 to 6 years and H4 is for the spouses. H1B allows for skilled migration and this is going to have a more long term effect. This is what I wanted to show. And more than that, why the long term effect is going to be there? Because Indians are as it is employed, 48% are employed in less than 100,000 jobs annually. So it is basically like buying a 5,000 buying a 1 lakh rupee case for a 70,000 phone. H4 is used by spouses to work if your wife wants to work. So basically, and 71% of all H1B visas out of that 65,000 quota goes to Indians. So that's the point. Any US tactics are ultimately aimed to deal with China by signing any mutual agreement with India because of high diaspora population. Chirag, what is more interesting is that this is coming weeks before the India-US bilateral agreement is going to be sorted. It's not about China. It's about creating pressure on India to not take Russian oil. It is to sour the relationship between India and Russia. All of this is a fallout of the SCO. The more we showed a key strength in with China and Russia both. SCO was about optics. This is a fallout of that. And it's not even just a fallout of that. America, Trump as of right now, if you follow American politics, what is called ICE, there's a lot of deportation happening. There's a lot of misinformation, fake news about immigrants, cartels, drug dealers. For America, Trump rhetoric is based around how the immigrant equals to a criminal. So Indian diaspora was considered to be different, but somehow they are now also put into that same type of understanding. It is quite problematic. It is based on Trump's MAGA constituency. This is to also distract away from the Epstein files. Lot is happening in American politics right now. So basically, it's a pure wildfire. And this is Trump adding more fuel to fire, right? Yeah, it is foolish, but you don't link Trump with very wise decisions. So wise man, Trump are oxymorons. So this is a foolish decision only. It is only going to impact the US IT hubs, which are the backbone of the American understanding. So ट्रम्प तेज नहीं है, ये हमें पता है. We know that. This is not a very in America everybody knows that Trump with the Charlie Kirk death, he was asked that what is your understanding. He was talking about a ballroom being constructed in the White House rather than talking about a person who was his constituency. But that is American politics. Russian friendship is important for us because it has been an all-weather friendship. Be it any time, Russia has always stood by us. America is not very, you can say, trustworthy. So, do understand one thing. Sometimes when I read comments, that people say that what is this anti-West, anti-America stance? So, I will say only one thing to you. If you have any understanding of world history, if you don't, please join me for my classes. If you have any understanding of world history and geopolitics, specifically world history and geopolitics, the West is the most hypocritical untrustworthy power in this world as of right now. West, when I mean NATO per se, British, French, Americans, all are the most slimiest of personalities or nationalities in the world. So if you have any form of, you can say, trustworthiness or this idea that you have a trust that the West is doing good for the world, just read your world history once. So, ठीक है, and saying something about Pakistan does not make me anti-Pakistan. When I'm saying that it's a terrorist state, है terrorist state, उसमें कौन सा मैंने नया बात बता दिया. So do understand one thing. I am not the person who's asking you to become anti-West in the answers, but you also have to exhibit this understanding that you do understand the true picture of the West. Don't be an American and a Britisher sitting in India. We all had that till 1947. वो collaborator बनने की जरूरत नहीं है. So if you have understanding of modern Indian history, world history and international relations, you will also exhibit the same type of understanding. But that is a separate issue altogether. Please don't, you are the future IFS officers of this world. You are the future IFS officers of India. Don't have a blind faith in this West. This is all what they do. That is why America has never been trusted by India as an all-weather friend. America has always done this. Given some form of support, then taken it back. Then again, some form of support, taken it back. This is the problem with the West. They are hypocritical. If they do it, it is all fine. Nuclear bomb is good. When we did it, then we are being sanctioned. This is the problem with the West. Till they have power, they like it. When someone else has power, they don't like it. That is where our foreign policy has been a revolution as of right now, where we are doing all alignment. We are having independent policy. Our foreign minister exhibits the same type of understanding which we have here. That is the whole point. Separately. Can I move to the last topic? Last one topic, 2 minutes. Yes, sir. Okay. In a major, you can say, development in the bullet train saga, the underwater tunnel, which had to meet to a certain point, that has happened. Meaning the undersea tunnel beneath the Mumbai-Thane Creek, which had to happen for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train, that has successfully happened on Saturday. This is a major breakthrough because it's a very difficult creek, it's a very difficult excavation, and the alignment really mattered. And therefore, with regards to bullet train, loco pilots are being trained. First phase is going to be operational by 2027, but this was a major hurdle in it. It has been now sorted. It has now been sorted. So please look out for more news about this ongoing saga since 2014. But the idea is this is still happening in the background. We don't know really about it. Remember this also. National High Speed Rail Corporation Limited. This is the specific agency which is doing all of these excavations and creating the bullet train. A Shinkansen loco pilot training simulation is happening as we speak. Right. So on this note, I finished this CNA. Past 3 days, we've been talking about Saudi Arabia, Pakistan quite a lot. I hope H1B, fentanyl, all of this is sorted, and you understand the importance of this change in H1B rules in that regard. Right? Okay. So if you don't have a question, thank you so much. I will see you soon. And remember that by Ancient Medieval Art and Culture batches are going to start on 1st October. So do join me for that. Okay. I think one of you wanted to ask a question. Tamanna, please, you can write your questions here if you want to. Yes, Manisha, you can also. I know my question may sound stupid, but sir, face of issue to feel uneasy in fixed place of study. Advisable to move according to you, keep changing the place. No, Manisha. That should never be the case. You don't disrupt your psyche. See, if you're feeling, for example, uneasy, it should be either bored. Don't keep on moving around to prepare. You have to be stable. You have to be in one place so that you have good environment. It should be a good environment. You should have good time, good lighting, everything. So don't do that. Don't do that. How to cover science and tech? As in from magazine only, or should cover, you have to cover static portions from the NCERT. But yes, questions are more dominated by current affairs, but static has to be covered. See, Tamanna, they don't do specific, they just refer to a 365 1-year compilation. The way to make notes is the way I'm giving it to you, which is condensing everything into, what I will tell you is a good way of doing it is create an Excel sheet, create your own, you can say, a Excel sheet which has index. So you can keep everything there. You can just put in all the new developments in that regard. They also do the same thing in that regard, right? I will be in steady state as recommended. Yes, Manisha, that is quite important. Financially also, mentally also, emotionally also, and physically also, everything needs to be in the right sweet spot. Is there any chance of reduction in brain drain? Forced reduction. Okay, Manisha, I hope everything is perfectly fine. And Tamanna, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Notes are made consistently in a certain repository which you have to create for yourself. Right? Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.